or someone who does work for a project, and you're like, man, I want a conversation about the things I'm interested in, whether it's gaming or DeFi like this one or AI or something else. The account that's live right now is open for messages, and you can send them a message and say, I saw the Nibiru chain conversation and I want to have a conversation like that. And we will set something up. We'll get a panel together, talk about all your favorite subjects. Doesn't matter what blockchain you're from or what you're doing. We'd love to help you out. And IBC has been doing that since 2017. So please let me have a conversation with you and Kelly and the team. It would be fun, and I like that. And you will get to see Nibiru have that conversation with us right now. We promised an AMA with them, but let's pretend for a second that somebody that is getting in here now has not been here for the whole show, and we don't want to assume they know anything about Nibiru. So the first question I always ask, and Brandon, if you want to jump in, or Unique, either one of you, is just what is Nibiru? What are we talking about today?
Yeah, so Nibiru is a high-performance L1 blockchain. So it's similar to like Solana or other chains, if you're familiar like that. It runs its own execution and consensus. And when I say high performance, is we worked a lot on making it able to handle very high load, both in terms of like number of transactions, and then also made it that it settles very fast, with like usually under 1.6 seconds. And so one of the novel things it does is it runs multiple VMs. So what that means is it can run different types of smart contracts on the same chain, and also it's completely composable. So both of those types of accounts can talk to each other. Those different kinds of apps can talk to each other, and essentially you can get the benefits of both ecosystems, both the EVM and then also WASM in our case for now, but likely other ones in the future.
What are some of the core problems that you guys are solving for developers in Web3 and also users?
Yeah, so it's different. I guess it would be different for developers versus users. I guess on the developer side, one is just making sure that the chain can scale to support the apps they want to build, and then also offering the tooling to support that. So making sure that everything's exactly backwards compatible on the EVM side is crucial, and then also adding a lot of tooling to support that in terms of things like indexers and SDKs. So there's a lot of information on that. On the user side, I think a lot of it is a mixture, not just from the tech, but then also the business focus. We touched a little bit on RWAs. I think for us in particular, it's a lot of the structured product offerings and basically tokenized yield that you can offer, which consists of things like on-chain corporate credit, collateralized loans, tokenized T-bills we touched on, and different things you can do with perpetuals exchanges to basically make passive investment vehicles for people. So then they don't have to be, like degen or super into using tons of applications to get competitive yields or safer yields, right? So a lot of the projects we're trying to seek out in the ecosystem or have launching very soon with our V2 is all centered around that.
Excellent. And some of the recent milestones that you guys have completed, things like the V2, the Lagrange point roadmap. Can you talk about some of those things that showcase your progress?
Yeah, so the chain started initially was just only doing WASM smart contracts. We did a V2 upgrade about, I think it was in February, that added EVM support, and then have done several upgrades since then to make it, make it easier for people to use, and just improve upon like developer feedback. And so the next major thing is we've onboarded a pretty big suite of applications that are all kind of co-launching or launching around the same time. And we'll start a big like liquidity campaign, basically to drive usage to all of these things. And so, I'll let Brandon or Jonathan jump in too if you want to talk about this. But yeah, that's basically the high level.
Jonathan?
Yeah, can chime in a bit here. As you guys kind of see on the screen, this is like our core apps, mostly on the EVM side. Of course, like like Unique mentioned, we also do support the WASM side as well. So pretty much, just allowing for, most builders, whether you're a Solidity developer or Rust developer, to build on the chain. Like the most exciting apps that we're, pretty excited about, of course, one being Stargate, just given that, that's the most familiar bridge kind of in the ecosystem in the space right now. They do billions of transactional volume. So coming over to Nibiru will be very easy, from low cost of gas to, very low slippage. And it's fairly instantaneous. So getting over to Nibiru from like Ethereum or Avalanche is very easy. a lot of our priorities are going to be around the yield side. And again, we are also pretty big on the RWA side. We've been, supporting the team called Coded Estate. They do on-chain real estate and short-term rentals. They've already opened up the markets in Dubai, so they have a license there. And the experience has been, pretty seamless on that side. And of course, with the Trump election, the Trump cabinet now, there's a lot more support in potentially bringing that over to the States. But kind of going back to what I referred to earlier of like bringing on real sustainable yield. A lot of the yield that we see in crypto, a lot of it is token inflation yield, which it may be beneficial on the surface, but that doesn't really protect you from things like token price volatility, right? So it's pretty interesting that we have a lot of different structured product offerings from whether you're a Bitcoin holder, you can bridge over to Nibiru. Using like a Bitcoin LRT. BEMA is one of the projects that's going to be supporting that initiative. MIMSwap Abracadabra, you'll be able to lever up your USDC and be able to loop it. So there's a lot of really cool ways to kind of earn real sustainable yield. And again, that's kind of why I also, heavily shield the Gemach side of things too. Asuna has been building out several product suites to also kind of help out building our kind of DeFi landscape. And a lot of that is also, to emphasize the user experience and to kind of streamline their access to, unconventional ways of earning yield versus like your traditional high yield saving accounts, right? I think someone touched on this earlier, but I think if retail and Web2 really understood what the optionality and, the wide range of optionality was like, in DeFi, like they'd be like going nuts, right? We'd be dropping all the traditional banks, right? But that's a little bit about the ecosystem. Like Unique kind of touched on, we do have an incentive campaign that is lined up, going to be rewarding and incentivizing liquidity onto the chain, early liquidity, but also just kind of bootstrapping the protocols for success. And that'll be going live sometime, hopefully by end of this month. We're excited to announce that, and there will be rewards associated with that. So, and we'll be publishing more information on that in the coming weeks. Just kind of how that framework works, which apps will be a part of it. And yeah, Unique can kind of touch on the Lagrange point if needed, but that's kind of like our more so like technical roadmap. And kind of, a lot of the bread and butter of our technology comes from the multi-VM side and how we were able to, have both EVM and WASM technology stacks communicate. Because naturally, they don't communicate from like a smart contract basis. So Unique can kind of touch on that a bit more. But yeah, really excited to kind of bring the VMs together. I think, I don't know if Unique touched on it, but with plans to support MoveVM, which has been really popular recently, as well as Solana VM in the future.
Do you want to take the time to highlight a couple of the dApps or ecosystem partners that you guys have got?
Yeah, sure. So, go ahead, Unique. Go ahead.
Oh, you can go ahead. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So, I mean, like I said, MIMSwap, Abracadabra. We have Oku. Oku Trade brings the Uniswap V3 contracts onto their chain. So that's, pretty big for folks in Ethereum space that use Uniswap, can access Nibiru and, swap into Nibiru pretty quickly. Coded Estate is a project that's been natively building on Nibiru for about a year. They're the RWA real estate project I referred to earlier. Abracadabra and MIMSwap have been around in the DeFi space for some time, so really excited to bring them on. We have Bracket, which brings on prediction markets, so kind of similar to like a poly market where it's mostly highlighted around like sports betting, but also larger current events, so that you can bring some interesting scenarios and predictions there. Some core contributors at Nibiru have been building side perps. Kind of think of like a hyperliquid style, but more so focusing around value accrual to the users that are actually putting a lot of time and effort into the protocol itself. And we have like the core primitives. We have NFT marketplaces like Element, which is pretty big on BNB chain. And of course, on the infra side, Layer 0 and Stargate for the bridge and adoption of the OFT standard. We've been working very closely with the Layer 0 team just to kind of work with a lot of different protocols that do support OFTs. And OFTs essentially just omni-chain fungible tokens essentially allow you to just access a wide range of different assets I mean, I'm talking like hundreds, if not thousands of different assets that currently support OFT. So that just means bridging and multi-chain is just, further enhanced.
Yeah, we could also touch upon structured products and RWAs and why we think that's exciting. And I think maybe if you go back to their dApps, you can kind of see like what makes Abra a bit more exciting is it's a looping protocol, and you could have multiple different like vault-like things that people can put things into. So like a concept that seems to be pretty blowing up within DeFi is modularity. So you kind of have like Morpho, Euler, Silo Finance. Each of them has like a separate strategy manager that can come make their own vaults. Even like Spectra, which is like an interest rate swap alternative to Pendle. They have a series of vaults that anyone can just spin up fairly easily, either in a permission or permissionless manner. But this creation is almost like analogous to kind of like hedge funds coming on chain, right? So like a Gauntlet as a strategy manager, they get to manage things. They get a 2 and 20 performance fee. It's a fairly large unlock, and it's almost a continuation of DeFi Summer from back in the day, where a lot of the main key product market fit things for crypto has remained in DeFi and mercenary capital moving around a lot. But structured products is where people are moving towards. And I think if you think actively, there's a move towards modularity. There's a move towards more prepackaged strategies, which is kind of similar actually to the TradFi, where you see a move towards ETFs into prepackaged solutions as people sort of concede, look, I don't have edge here. Let me just trust the manager to manage on my behalf, or actually do much larger of a passive strategy. You're actually seeing a move towards ease of user experience. So LST tokens like Lido, for example, are an example of that, where instead of having to stake my ETH myself and figure that all out, I could just buy staked ETH. And then like stable coins are interesting because it's essentially like an on-chain vault that you can give money into, but it's a stable coin, a token representation of that vault. So it's a ease of use of buying the stable coin can then get you that vault strategy. So if you combine all these sort of things, and then you actually couple with what you were talking about in the past, which was banks now offering stable coins, you could have people that can access crypto yield in a super simplified manner. Like banks are the distribution channel. So, all these things that took like way more, like think about when you first started in crypto and you were figuring out, oh, here's a centralized exchange. I just have to like how to use that. And you thought that was the end. And it's like, no, you have to transfer it on chain to a wallet. Oh, and then you have to interact with a chain. And then there's like 12 different apps. And there's a bunch of people on Twitter explaining things. And like all that complexity can get abstracted away into just buy a stable coin in a passive yield strategy. And there's your crypto exposure. So I think that's the vision that we're going towards, and that's largely around these structured products and RWAs that we sort of focused on that Brandon was talking about. But we're also open to other things like in NFTs, consumer, alongside a rise in the major themes. Other things will also kick off alongside crypto. But I think we really think those are the main areas where people will focus on and push the industry forward.
Those are excellent points. And one of the things I was reading about, and you guys call it's multi-VM. I'm familiar with EVM, but for some listeners out there, how does multi-VM architecture unlock new use cases and improve UX for builders?
Yeah, so it's essentially that like multi-VM just means exactly as the name implies. You're taking things like most other chains, or almost all of them, run a single virtual machine that executes all of their smart contracts, if they even have smart contracts. In our architecture, you can use different ones within the same block, and they can actually call into each other. So these sort of apps that maybe couldn't have existed in the EVM can still exist on our chain, or vice versa. So that kind of opens up to the IBC landscape. IBC in this case, like inter-blockchain composability, like all of those projects that were built in WASM can basically get access to the EVM applications and also the liquidity and bridges. And then it also goes the other way. So for example, like we were just talking about setting up an integration on the topic of yield tokens is like Noble, one of the partners with Circle, made a yield-bearing stable offering. And so we're already connected with Noble. So then that means we can pretty easily get that over to the EVM or make that a part of the whole, set up a cauldron on Abracadabra, and then it can be a part of the whole lending and looping area, or people can use it for perps, right? So it really makes it's solving like composability in that aspect. And that increases the variety of applications you can have. And also you can think of it as you can use whichever wallet you're familiar with to use the chain, as long as we support that VM.
So on that note, this is everything in crypto also leans into the community side. What community like incentives are in place to drive the growth beyond the developers that attracted them to the chain? What incentives do you have to drive user growth over the next 12 months?
Yeah, so one is we have a pretty large campaign that right now will go for, I think we have it planned for 6 months to a year. That starts with essentially, now that we've got the V2 out, several of the DEXs are setting up their pools and getting ready to launch, and Sai coming up, we can basically start this larger initiative where people get rewarded for time-bound like liquidity, right? So if they're depositing into these different like vaults or yield or lending, there's incentives on top of that. And then similarly, we also have like missions that are more specific to dApps but aren't based on liquidity. And so yeah, we basically have an announcement coming out pretty soon that gives like all the details on that. But it's a lot of basically the apps you saw on that ecosystem page. It's essentially like doing everything we can to like shepherd usage toward those.
Go ahead. Go ahead, Pulse.
You guys have got the NIBI token, and it's going to play a role in staking and governance and stuff like that. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, it's the governance token so it's a proof of stake chain, and then that means when people stake, they have voting power to vote almost like a DAO, but on like low level parameter changes or other things on the L1 itself, rather than as a separate project. So a big component of that too also is we lean pretty heavily into the usage of liquid staked NIBI. And so that'll also be a key thing where instead of people just having to like lock up capital and then have, a delta risk on holding the asset only, basically all of the DeFi pillars in Nibiru will also take, or maybe instead of NIBI, also take liquid stake NIBI. And so that will mean basically people don't have to lock up their capital, but can still use a lot of the stuff we're talking about, like in particular the perps and all of the stuff based on Abracadabra.
That's excellent. So the website for anybody that's been watching and they're trying to follow along, the one that Kelly was just showing was Nibiru.fi. Nibiru spelled just like it is in the top right corner, .fi. And on Twitter, X, it's Nibiru chain, all one word, just like it's spelled in the top right corner. For the people that are going to that website, or maybe they're going to the X, do you guys have a post right now or somewhere on the website you want them to click? Because you got a large audience. Where would you direct all of these people to go since they're all here?
Yeah, the pin posts or the ecosystem page. We have a call to action for the campaign.
Yeah, I just posted the link as well. It's called wen.nibiru.fi. There's like an early access page you can sign up for. You just insert your Ethereum address, name, and that's really it. And I'll post. There's also like an access code. I'll also post as well. But we can we'll ship out a post on Twitter so you guys can get registered.
Excellent. So everybody that's watching right now is going to want to go over and make sure they're following the main account so they can get that access code. It was spelled wen.nibiru.fi. That's going to be where you go, and you're going to want the code for that. This has been a great conversation. I appreciate you guys bringing this here to the Mario channel. When we get together, we try to do the right mix of entertaining and fun. And this has been one that I think I learned some things at, which means somebody in the audience learned something too. Thank you to Nibiru Chain. It's Jonathan, Unique, and Brandon that came together today to have this conversation with us. And then Asun was here, and Femi and Travis. On X, most of these people have the same name. So if you're listening to them today, you can follow that name to their X account and follow them over there. Asun and Femi and Travis, thank you for being panelists today. We appreciate you taking your time to be here with Nibiru. And Nibiru, thank you for sponsoring the conversation. These are such a good time. the team that sets us up, Kelly and I don't get to do this by ourselves. There's a bunch of people that help set this up, and we appreciate that they let us do that. And then Kelly and I do these shows all week long. So Kelly, I appreciate you side by side hosting another show, closing out into a Friday afternoon. You know how I feel on Friday afternoons. We've done this before. I pay attention over the weekend, and I said it earlier. Sometimes I'm just looking ahead so short. So I'm looking forward to getting together on Monday. Keep your hand across. What'd you say earlier? Keep your hand across your heart and keep the positive sentiment or whatever. Yeah, that's what you said. So I'm going with that this time, and I'll meet you back for green candles again on Monday, buddy.
I appreciate that. Yeah, everybody, as this wraps up, go back, watch this entire episode because it was chock full of great conversation about what's going on in this ecosystem. I really do appreciate everybody that's tuned in, but also the Nibiru chain team for doing the AMA here with us. And of course, everybody that was on the panel. Just a reminder, I've seen this in 3 cycles now. There's never going to be, oh, these are the tokens. This is what's happening. This is it. There's going to be newer projects doing better and more accultured things in this ecosystem. And I've really appreciated being able to see Nibiru and what they've got. It's on my radar now. So I got to look deeper in this and figure out if I'm going to get some exposure in my portfolio, because it seems like you guys have taken a lot of the roadmap of things that have worked and really tied in a lot of abilities now with the new outlook of how things could work together. So I appreciate being able to learn about that. With that, everybody, have a wonderful weekend. Find some gratitude. And again, we'll see you all in the next one here with IBC on the Mario Nawfal Crypto Daily. We'll see you in the next one. Adios.